Haboim, welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Samich Aleph Amud Aleph, 11 lines from the bottom. The Gemara just explained what happens when the Kohen Gadol, amidst his hazois, his sprinkling of the dam in the heichal, for example, the dam spills. For example, he then sprinkles 3 times and then it spills. What does he do next? According to Rabbi Meir, he says that you take new dam and you sprinkle that from a new, counting all 7 hazos. Whereas Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon both say that he goes from the mokom shenifsak. He starts counting 4, 5, 6, and 7 to be mashlim the hazos that he began with. The Gemara brings a pasuk stating, Midam hachatos hakipurim achas ba'shono. That means to say, according to the Tanakam Rabbi Meir, it means achas chatos. Chatos achas means 1 chatos. And therefore, whatever he has done until now is invalid. He has to do it again, so it's only 1 chatos. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon, they explain chitui achas. And therefore, it has to be 1 sprinkling. So therefore, if it already began, the Kohen Gadol 3 sprinklings, he continues 4, 5, and 6. The Gemara now points out, Tanya Amar Rabbi. Rabbi says in the following brayso, Li chilek Rabbi Yaakov belugin. In regards to lugin, lugin is referring to the oil, the amount of a lug, whereby the mitzara goes through a procedure. Included in that procedure is that the kohen takes from the oil of this lug and he sprinkles 7 times towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and he then makes applications of that oil on the right ear of the mitzara, the right big thumb, and the right big toe of the mitzara. What happens amidst this application? Let's say, for example, he applies to the ear and then the oil spills. What is the din? So Rabbi says that Rabbi Yaakov said, although we just explained there's a machlokes in regards to Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippurim between Rabbi Meir and the Cholkim, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, but over here everybody would agree, says the Gemara, that here Tanya Omar Rabbi Li Chilek Rabbi Yaakov belugin. Everybody would agree by lugin, since it's a lug echad and not shnei lugin. Everyone would agree that you'd have to go from the beginning, including Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon would say that. Ask the Gemara, V'loi, are you going to say they do not argue? Vehatanya, behold, we have a brayso that says explicitly that they do argue, as follows. Noson miktsas matone shebifnim v'nishbach halug. If he does some of the matonos bifnim in the heichal, and then the oil spills, Yavi lug acher v'yatchil mitchilo b'matona shebeheichal. Then he shall bring a new lug of oil and begin the matonos again from anew. That's the Tanakam, which would be Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon oimrim mimokom sheposak hu matchil. They argue and they say that he continues from the place of the posak, and therefore if he did 3 sprinklings, he then goes 4, 5, 6, and 7. The Brisa continues, if he finished all of the applications in the heichal and then the oil spills, then then he brings new oil and he begins doing the process for the applications on the ear. Now, this is agreed upon by everybody because it's a new stage in the application of the damim. However, the Brisa continues, Noson mikzas matones v'bahonois v'nishbach halug. If he began doing some of those applications on the ear, for example, he did on the ear, the right ear, and then the oil spilled, Yavi lug achav yaschil bitchila b'matones v'bahonois. According to Tanakam, which is Rabbi Meir, he would go ahead and perform with new lug of oil from the beginning with the right ear again. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, no, they say that he only begins applying from, let's say, the right thumb and then the right foot, the right big toe. Makam sheposak. The Brisa concludes, Gomar matonis shebebahonos v'nishmach halug. If they completed, the Kohen Gadol completed the applications of the bahonos on the mitzvah, and then the oil spilled, divrei hakol matonis harosh loy ma'akvos. The additional matonos application on the head of the mitzvah is not ma'akev. Ad kan the brisa. What we see from this brisa is clearly the same machlokes that Rabbi Meir has with Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon in regards to the avodas hadam on Yom Kippurim is equally true when it comes to the avodas the applications of the oil in regards to the mitzvah. Not like Rabbi said in the name Rabbi Yaakov. To which the Gemara answers, Eima li shona Rabbi Yaakov belui. What you have to say is that what he meant when he says that he's chilek, not that he makes a distinction, but rather he taught the same machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon in regards to Yom Kippurim, also over here in regards to mitzvah. The Gemara brings back the latter statement in the Brisa Omar Mar, Matonas Harosh Ein Ma'akvos. We said when it comes to the mitzvah, there are the applications of the bahoinos that are used with the oil that's left over after this hazos towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And then whatever is left over then is applied to the head. But it says over here, if the oil spilled after all of the applications on the bahoinos, then the application on the roish is not ma'akvois. My time asks the Gemara, what's the reason? It's in the pasuk. Min hashemen, the additional, whatever is left over, the shiurim of the shemen, and therefore it implies there's a shiurim, whereby it's not ma'akev. Well, ask the Gemara, then that which it says by the koimates, when the kohen takes the koimates from the flour of the mincha offering, whatever left over, we would say should also not be ma'akev. It also says the same lashon v'hanoseres, and yet we know that if indeed whatever happened to that additional flour, let's say, gets spilled or lost before the kaimetz is put onto the mizbeach, it will then poisel. So that can't be the reason. So why do we say then the applications of the oil on the head of the mitzvah is not ma'akev? If indeed it says v'hanoisar, that can't be the reason. Answers the Gemara, because shiny hasam dichsiv umiyeser v'hanoisar. There's two different psukim. One that says v'yeser, one that says noisar. Yeser implies whatever is additional oil that's left over after the hazah. That will then be used for the applications on the boihanos. But then it says in the pasuk v'hanoisar. In addition to that, there's shiare shiarim, whereby that will be placed on the head of the kohen. If it's not in existence because it's spilled, gets lost, whatever, then it's not ma'akev. Take a look at Rashi in the bottom. Shiny hacha dechsiv u'miyeser hashemen v'hanoisar. Maton is bohoy nois kruin shiroyim. The applications of the oil that's left over from the hazos towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that's called shirayim. Dechsiv behu u'miyeser hashemen, like the pasuk says, that's miyeser, the leftovers of the shemen. Umatonas harosh kruin shirei shirayim. But the application that would be on the head of the mitzvah, that's called shirei shirayim. Those are leftovers of leftovers. Dichsiv, it says in the pasuk, v'hanoiser b'shirayim, v'hanoiser b'shirayim harishonim yiten al rosh hamitaher. The fact that it says hanoiser in addition to v'yeser, it's now shirei shirayim. So therefore, if it spills, it will not be ma'akev the avodah. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, on top of Samach Aleph Amud Beis. Rabbi Yochanan says the following: Osha mitzara sheshachtoi l'shelo lishmoi bonu lemachloikis Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon. Here, Rabbi Yochanan says that included in the mitzara's purification process on the 8th day, he has to then bring a korban osham. If he shechs the korban osham, not l'shem osham, but rather l'shem oila or l'shem shlomim. So although it's still a kosher korban, but he is not going to be yotzei his choiv with that because it wasn't l'shem the osham. So Rabbi Yochanan says the same machlokes that we just saw in regards to the avodas hadam and Yom Kippurim, and also in regards to the oil of the mitzvah, is equally going to be true in regards to the somebody who the mitzvah who shechs the carbon osham, not l'shem osham. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Meir do Omar Yavi Acher v'yatchil b'tchila hochanami Yavi Ach v'yishchoit. Rabbi Meir l'shitosoi, who says that whatever he did until now is not valid, and therefore he'd have to bring new dam to then sprinkle from a new, or oil that will then begin the process from a new. So to over here he'd have to bring another korban as a korban osham. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon she'oimrim mi makom sheposak mishom hu matchil hocha ein loy takana. Whereas Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, they say that whatever avodah was good until now, so therefore if the dam was nishpach, then he has to take the dam, new dam, and then continue the process. Or the oil that was nishpach, he continues from where he left off. Over here, since he can't bring another korban osham, because it says osham achas, keves echad, osham echad, v'lo shtei ashamos, only one keves as an osham, not two. Therefore, according to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, he will not bring another korban because there's no takana. And whatever he did now was going to be considered to be valid. Maski for the Rav Chizda challenges Rabbi Yochanan, who says that their machlokas applies here regards to somebody who the mitzvah who shechs the korban osham lo lishma. V'ho oisoi kesiv. Over here in regards to the mitzvah by the osham, it says oisoi. I'll read the pasuk. V'lokach hakohen es hakeves ha'echod v'hikriv oisoi lo osham v'gomer. It says the kohen will take the keves, the one keves, and bring it oisoi as an osham. So here we have a diuk oisoi. He'll bring it. It's written mashma only it, and not another one. Gemara leaves it as a kasha that indeed it's shver on Rabbi Yochanan, because even Rabbi Meir Lachar would agree you can't bring another keves over here because it says oisoi. The Gemara now brings a brisa like Rabbi Yochanan. It's mashma that this brisa this time does not darshan oisoi, as follows: Tanya kavased Rabbi Yochanan. He has a way of explaining out oisoi. Either he doesn't darshan or he explains it differently. But al koponim, the brisa is as follows: Osham mitzora sheshachtoi shelo lishmoi oy shelo nosem b'damoi. If the osham mitzora, when he shechs it, not l'shem osham, as we said, either l'shem oila or l'shem shlomim, for example, or he did not apply its dam, so legabe bahoinois hareze oila legabe mizbeach. In regards to the bahoinois, this will then go on the mizbeach. Let's read it again. Osham mitzar sheshachto shalishmoi. If the osham did not shech the korban osham lishma, the mitzvah did not shech the korban osham lishma, oy shelo nasam midamo legabe bahoinois. If he did not apply the dam in regards to the bahoinois, hareze oy legabe mizbeach. Behold, it will go on the mizbeach. It will still be valid on the mizbeach. V'ton, however, nisachim v'tzorich osham achal achshiroi. But nonetheless, you will need new nisachim, and you will have to then shecht another korban osham. So you see, like Rabbi Yochanan said, that this is the shita of Rabbi Meir. The stam tana over here is Rabbi Meir, and says that indeed, if he didn't shecht l'shem osham, he will have to bring another osham. Rav Chizda Amar, Rav Chizda, who was the one who challenged before with oisoi, he will say to you, my tzarich. What does it mean over here when it says in this brisa, tzarich osham acher achshiroi? The matzor will have to then be tzarich and osham acher to be machshir, to allow him to then eat korban kachim. What does it mean? Tzarich ve'ein loy takana. He needs to, but over here, since there's no takana, so therefore he doesn't shecht another korban. That's the situation. He's not able to. ask the Gemara on what Rav Chiz just said, tzarich means ve'ein loy takana. V'tani tano tzarich ve'ein loy takana. Would the Tana teach something word tzarich and mean that it does not have a takana? If it's a tzarich, l'chara, it means that he has a takana. What does it mean tzarich? The Gemara says, we find such a thing where the Tana says tzarich and it doesn't have a takana. As follows, ve'hatanyo, it says in the following brayso, nazir mimarat. The nazir, he has to then he has to shave on the end of his nazirus. And it says, what happens when the nazir is mimarat? He is bald. How do they shave his head? So Beis Shammai omrim tzorich havaras tar. Beis Shammai says he needs havaras hatar, even though he's bald. Beis Hillel omrim ein tzorich havaras tar. Beis Hillel says he doesn't need. He's bald. V'om Ravina, Ravina comes to explain, what does this mean? According to Beis Shammai, that tzorich havaras hatar. Kisha omrim Beis Shammai tzorich ve'ein loy takana. So we find that the way it's explained over here, that tzarich means ein loy takana. He needs to, but in this situation, since he's bald, so he can't. So that's the chavona over here as well, that he needs to go ahead and bring another korban osham, because he shechted shalol l'shem korban osham, but he cannot. Upligid the Rabbi Pedas. This explanation of Avina, who just said tzarich ve'ein loy takana, comes to argue on Rabbi Pedas. Dom Rabbi Pedas, what does Beis Shammai mean when he said tzarich ve'ein loy takana? It doesn't mean they don't do anything. It means the following. Dom Rabbi Pedas, Beis Shammai Rabbi Elazar Amru Dover Echad. They said the same thing. They said that when it says tzarich, it means you need to do what you can do. And as follows: Beis Shammai Hoda Amaran. Beis Shammai, like we said before, Rabbi Elazar. The Tanya, ein loy boyhen yad uboyin ragil. Rabbi Elazar, here it says in the Brayso, if he doesn't have, let's say, the mitzara, he doesn't have a thumb and a big toe, ein loy taharas olamis. According to the Tanakama, then he can't become tahor, because there's no applications on those areas, so he can't become tahor, which is the purification process. Rabbi Elazar oimer noisin al mekoimoy v'yotzei. Rabbi Elazar says you put it on its place. Granted, he doesn't have a thumb and he doesn't have a big toe, but in the stump, on the area where it was. Rabbi Shimon Omer, im nosan al shel small yotza. You put it on the left big thumb and the left big toe. But al we see, Rabbi Elazar says that when it says tzarich, it means tzarich in this case. It means that you place it in a way that you can. That means tzarich. So therefore it comes out, when the Gemara said before that Rabbi Avina was explaining that it's tzarich ve'ein loy takana, that argues on Rabbi Pedas. Rabbi Pedas says that Beis Shammai didn't mean that you don't do anything. It means you place it on the areas of where you can. And therefore that's the way to mekayim the purification process, even though he doesn't have thumbs. But Rabbi Elazar would say like Beis Shammai, when it's in this case you don't have thumbs, you at least place it in the place where the thumb was located, and that will then serve as a purification process for the mitzvah.